Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing this, which is Only Fools and Horses, Thicker Than Water, which came out 40 years ago this year. It came out in 1983, and is a very solid episode for Only Fools and Horses. It introduces a lot of concepts to the show that would affect its future, especially to do with Rodney Trotter, because Rodney has been... well, he discovers what happened to his father, who his father could be. That kind of stuff is brought up, but not as much as it is in other stuff. So, yeah. We begin the episode with Rodney and Grandad. They're sitting watching a film, and in Rodney's word, a film the Germans try to bomb. That was a funny joke that Rodney said to Grandad. And they were watching his old film, and the doorbells goes, and Grandad says, "Was that the door, Rodney?" And says, "Yes, it sounds very much like it, grandfather." So he said that, which was a rather funny line. And then Rodney goes to answer the door, and it's Reg Trotter, and he says, "I'm looking for a family called the Trotters," and he goes, "What makes you think the Trotters are there then?" And he was like, Rodney was getting a bit defensive because obviously he's like, is it probably one of Dell's dodgy deals has gone wrong or something like that? So that was fairly cool. And then Grandad comes to the door, and he then says, "Oh, Reggie, oh, it's been too long, too long." And then he says, "Oh," and he said, uh, "Oh, let me introduce you." It was like, "This is Rodney. Rodney, I'd like you to meet your dad." And it's just like, what the hell? It's just absolutely mental because you're like, why did he never come back? And we don't really get an answer to why he left, but it's just very odd, if you ask me. But yeah. So that all happens, and then Dell comes in, and Dell's gonna... he's like absolutely... he goes ballistic, he does. Absolutely mad. He just doesn't... he can't stand him, because that is the man who walked out on his family, his two children, and his dad. I mean, that's just ridiculous in a time that they needed them. And he was like, "Where have you been for the last 18 years? Did his watch stop?" That's a great quote. I can just quote this episode all day. It's such a brilliant episode. It was just really funny. Like, it's just a banging episode. Brilliant. Other great things about this episode is that Reg comes in and he says that I've been living up in this place. I've forgotten the name of the place, but he says he's got some hereditary blood disease, and both of it said hereditary, and he was like, "That means I could have it." And then they're both like, "Oh, that means we must have this hereditary disease." So Dell and Rodney are obviously like, "Well, it must be us then. We must have this hereditary blood disease." And we find out neither of them have it. They have their blood test, but something comes back that makes Grandad and Dell go a bit like, is Rodney not related to us? Is there a kind of underlining thing there, which does get addressed later on in the series, a lot later on, but this is the first kind of hint to it, that Rodney's real father is not Reg. But in this story, it does a slightly different turn, I think. So Dell gets his results, and obviously Grandad's looking at them, and he says, like, and then Dell looks at them and he says, "Yeah, no, you got something wrong. My blood group's AB, and Rodney's blood group is A." And then he was like, "How did he get a different blood group?" And he was like, And then Grandad looks over in the corner. You mean you don't think you got the same mother? We got the same mother and both got the same father. He was like that. So that was a really funny kind of area there, but very odd as well. So that was rather funny, and then Grandad starts bringing up people to the trumpet from the Locarno and all of this. There's I got the saxophone player, all of these other people, but deep down we all know it's Freddie Robdell if you've watched the series in the future. But yeah, so that was rather funny, trying to work out who Rodney's dad is. But in this story, after this, it does take a slightly different turn. Um, Reg storms back into the flat, and Rodney's already there, and he said, I opened their medical reports, and he found out that one of my sons has got a different blood group. And then Reg is like, oh, I checked my blood group with my whatever. I checked Grandad's blood group with his records, and then it was like a lone ranger in the family, which I thought was rather brilliant. So that was rather funny. It said Lone Ranger. It was like one of them not his son, and they said he's like you're the mystery, and he points at Dell, and Dell was like what? Because Dell obviously looks like a typical trotter. He looks like Reg. He looks a bit like his granddad, and Rodney's the kind of person who doesn't really fit into the family ways, considering he's like what 6'2", and Dell's like quite a lot smaller than him, and Reg and Grandad are a lot smaller in comparison to Rodney, who's actually a lot taller than them. So it's a bit strange in the. I mean, I don't know. He thinks Rodney's his son, which I guess he would do, but he just really hates Dell. He doesn't get on with Dell at all, and I know why. I think it might be the fact that they're too similar, which means they kind of butt heads quite a bit, and that might be a reason why. But obviously, Dell's a lot nicer person than Reg Trotter, obviously, but they are similar in many ways, but different as well. So I think that was fairly interesting that we got to see in this episode. There's another scene later on where they go into the pub, and Dell's looking really miserable, drinking his pint of beer, and he's like, AB, AB, and he's just going over it, and he's really confused by it, absolutely puzzled by it. But then Rodney tries and convinces him that they could still be full brothers. It might just be that he's got different genes and things like that. So they try and figure out that way through that way. But then Dell goes and sees Dr. Becker later, and he then mentions that someone added the B to his medical reports, which made him look as if he was made it look as if that way. But it's a great finale section, and then he says, he also looked up your hereditary blood disease, and he says he's never been there. He had a porter, and then he leaves. And then at the end of the story, Grandad comes out with a pizza, and he says, "I burned your pizza," and he's like, "This is the way, just the way it was." And I was like, and that was the last appearance of Grandad, and it's a really great episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed my review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a video soon enough. Bye for now.